Hello everyone. My name is Edmund Barrett. I'm Senior Business Development Manager in the 2-year German office based in Düsseldorf. Today we're talking about security SaaS, or rather peace of mind as a service. Yeah, the focus today will be on security, but for those of you who are completely new to 2-year, you can understand 2-year really as an IoT platform. We combine an extremely large network of manufacturers, both in China but also around the world. Together with our platform, which runs in the public cloud. That's a sort of slightly technical term for either being hosted on AWS from Amazon or Microsoft Azure. So that's the internet part. And then we provide modules, which you then integrate into either your own products, or you purchase devices from a manufacturer and they integrate the modules into their devices. That's basically making the devices smart. So that's running over things like 4G, Wi-Fi, etc., etc. So what we do is we provide the whole thing as a sort of out-of-the-box service. We have a very extensive background in the area of smart home. So we're, in this particular case, and that will be the focus of today, focusing very much on the consumer market. So we see real growth in the smart home market, particularly with regards to or just simple smart devices, because it has to be said that some consumers don't go out, wake up of a morning and say, I'm going to buy myself a smart home system, but they will quite often buy smart devices, say, for example, a light bulb or a camera or a door window sensor, and then gradually build their system as it goes on. So with regards to 2-year, we're not the face of the consumer, we're an enabler. So we work with manufacturing brands, we work with retailers, we work with service providers, so that they don't have to invent a smart system or a smart security system from scratch. But rather can use the basis of what we provide, brand it, make it suitable to their own look and feel, suit their customer journey, their customers, but at the same time don't have to do all of that heavy lifting in terms of developing a completely new system themselves. So with regards to security, what we actually do is we have the basis of a smart home app. So we have a 2-year smart app and the smart life app, and the security SaaS solution docks onto that. So many people will be using the app in order to control other aspects of their home. Obviously, security is an extremely important point within that. And as a result, the security element is almost like an addition to the traditional smart home system itself. So why security? So we're probably all, in terms of participants in this session today, you'll be coming from all sorts of angles. You could be an insurer, you could be a service provider in some sort. Perhaps you offer your own security teams that can check out properties if there's been an alarm raised. You may be a camera manufacturer, or you may be a brand who is looking to get into this area. At the same time, we also have to take into account the consumer's perspective. So there are different demands. The market is developing in various ways around the area of security from a consumer perspective. So I've just picked out 1 or 2, I think, interesting points around the markets, which will form the basis of the presentation today. So first of all, what is 2-year doing in the area of security? Well, security is one of the main reasons, the main motivators for why a consumer starts to buy smart products. So you have other things like, wanting to be more energy efficient. So, for example, timers on your heating, etc. It might be convenience, it might be fun. So things like music-controlled lamps, etc. But security is definitely a main motivator, and definitely something which is very, people feel quite passionate about and are also prepared to invest in. At the same time, we also see that the cost of the technology is dropping. So even things like, I don't know, making a product smart, a module, a Wi-Fi module, years ago, that would have been quite expensive. Nowadays, we're talking about maybe a couple of euros or something like that. At the same time, if we think about traditional security type devices, so that might be a door window sensor, or it might be a camera, the actual product itself is also dropping in price. The cost of manufacturing is dramatically low. I remember years ago, a door window sensor would probably sell for, let's say 30 euros or so. That meant that the market was fairly niche. It was really people who felt very passionate about it, people who were perhaps very technical and interested in technology. But for the mass market, it wouldn't have been something that they would be so interested in. So they would perhaps like myself, think, 30 euros, okay, I can go to the football for that price, I can go to the pub with my friends, and so therefore they prioritize other purchases ahead of that. With regards to technology and the cameras, specifically the cameras, obviously the technology is also improving dramatically every year. So say, for example, the number of pixels, the sort of quality of the image, etc., has improved dramatically. We see, say, for example, DIY stores who might sell security cameras, for example, then generally they will reach an agreement with the producer where they won't actually take on, they'll only pay for what stock they sell, because they know the next year the camera technology has changed dramatically. So that's something that you can cope with, but it's certainly a pressure on the industry. The other thing, and the smart home element, as it were, is that, of course, we're not just talking about traditional security products. We're also talking about things can have other devices that can have a security effect. So coming from a smart home angle, as Tuya does, there are things, say, for example, like a door window sensor someone might have purchased it because they want to open their bathroom window, but at the same time, they want the heating to be turned down so they don't waste energy. A light bulb, it could be a smart light, which during the day is adjusted because they're using it for their home office and they want the right type of light. At the same time, that could be used as a virtual resident function to dissuade people from breaking into the property, because it gives the appearance that, I don't know, the television is on or that somebody is at home. So we have to bear in mind that the consumers are quite inventive, that they're getting more and more smart devices within their property. So those can all serve a security function. The other thing is as well that we're not just talking about traditional security companies and, say, for example, security device manufacturers like a camera manufacturer. There are other parties getting involved. So, I mean, one of the great examples is things like insurance, where the possibility they're looking to engage, they want to be more visible within with their customers rather than just sending out a contract or a bill occasionally. They want to be able to offer services. They also want to reduce the number of claims that are taking place. And insurance companies can't interact. They can't sell these types of products due to the regulation within the market, but they're very interested in partnering up with suppliers on this instance. So that's certainly an interesting aspect. And I think one of the things that will drive this sort of peace of mind as a service and more services, less hardware in the future. I've just talked about peace of mind. I think that's a really important thing. One of the challenges that we will see, and probably already seeing, is that someone might buy some security products, but really it's kind of a negative relationship, because the customer installs the devices, they get that initial peace of mind, but then they forget about, they're not sort of constantly looking, yes, I've got a camera from this manufacturer or something like that, isn't that great? And really it's associated with perhaps break-ins. So it's always sort of a risk that the customer is faced with rather than a positive thing. And it could be, and I think this is one of the things that we need to work on together, is really to create more positive use cases around just a more general peace of mind. My home is in a good state at the moment, etc. But also on a regular interaction and a more active dialogue with the customer, because obviously that presents the opportunity to then sell other items. So in terms of what we do at 2year and what we offer within our app, I encourage you all to take a look at the 2year smart app, also the Smart Life app, all sorts of functionality within that, which is quite heavily focused on smart home. But you can obviously speak to me or one of my colleagues or register on our website to look at the security SaaS functionality. So what we do is we take the traditional app with all of the functionality that the customer has, say, for example, setting up timer functions, controlling their heating, controlling their lighting, and other electrical devices. And then through security SaaS, we were able to then upgrade that to offer additional security features. It's fairly extensive. We're working both with the whole network of manufacturers that we already work with. So there's a certain innovation effect within the app. It's continuing to develop month for month, year for year. But in terms of some of the security features that we offer, there is a basis that is free of charge to the customer. Obviously, they have to purchase some devices from a supplier, but yeah, in order to encourage engagement, etc., then there are certain free features, and some of them I've got here listed already. So one of them is DIY installation. Well, I mean, that seems fairly straightforward, really, but we have to bear in mind, depending on the market you're working in, a geographical market, there are a large number of people who rent properties. So including myself, one of the things that I'm never going to do is start installing stuff that is going to be challenging to install, maybe has a somebody has to come around to install it, that costs money. I'm therefore investing in a property that isn't even my own, and I'm also aware of the fact that when I move out, I'm going to have to remove all of the stuff again. So one of the real advantages is that the vast majority of devices that we currently offer through the system, that they are things that you can install yourself. And that just opens up, we talked about mass market earlier, that opens up a much larger market in terms of people who would be interested in this type of product. App and the software within it for years. We have so much experience around. I think we've got something like 35 million devices added this year alone. So there's the system itself functions extremely well, and we've already worked through so many scenarios, and that just makes the product stronger. So one of the things that the customers don't want to be fiddling around with is that the security system is running when they're at home, etc. They want it to, it should be smart after all. So we want it to fit in with their lifestyle, and so therefore there is a wealth of automation functionality around it that they can set up very easily, extremely intuitively, in order to get the system so it really fits their home, because there is no standard home, let's face it. And so therefore it needs to fit the customer so that they accept it and they're keen on it and perhaps consider buying other products in the future. The other thing that we've got linked in is that obviously, because it's app-based, there's things like push alerts, there's email alerts, etc. So not just it's being watched, but the customer has the peace of mind. They know, okay, if anything goes wrong, I'm going to get some information about it. With regards to that, and obviously there's the live footage. So if their alert occurs, then the customer doesn't just get informed about it, they actually see it. I always think about like one of my friends who has a tracker for his camper van. He can only occasionally see where the van might be, but not who might have stolen it or whatever. So for that increased peace of mind, being able to see, oh, is that really an alert? Has someone really broken into my home? Or is it just, I don't know, the cat's knocked something over or something like that? You immediately get live footage. You immediately see what's going on in your home, and that obviously increases the peace of mind. And no one's living, well, chances are the vast majority of people don't just live alone. So they may be living with flatmates, they've got family, etc. So you can also set up geofencing, so that when you leave the home, for example, all of the system is then made live for the security system. And at the same time, when you come home, or when family members come home, they don't have to know a code or whatever. Instead, they get within the near to the property, and then immediately the system is either turned on or turned off as you wish. At the same time, we also offer additional features that are premium features, and you can also offer them if you take on a security SaaS product from us. So one of the things that is extremely useful is the fact that, yeah, you do get live footage, but at the same time, it might be interesting to review footage. So there is a cloud storage feature. There are tariffs that we set up based on the amount you want to store and how long, etc. We have things that are possible, so you can send, rather than just alert through the app, the customer could actually be rung. So some people aren't, they've got a lot of apps on their phone, maybe they haven't seen the alert. Sometimes it's just better to have a phone call there, or perhaps a phone call to the neighbor or something like that. For those who are looking to offer some kind of security service where a team goes around and checks out property, then we also have the possibility staged within that, that if it definitely is something of concern and not just the cat, then a security team can automatically be triggered. They can drive around to the property and check it out. And at the same time, you can also create your own. So within our, what we call IoT platforms, like the development area, you can use data in order to create new services, come up with your own ideas, and offer those as an additional functionality the customer can pay a premium for. Most important thing about this is that we provide these things, that we make these available, but it's not something, as I say, that where we're the face of the consumer. So at the same time, you can price them as you wish, and you can share within that revenue. And so therefore you have an ongoing revenue stream. We're not just talking about the sale of one-off hardware. Yeah, with regards to the sale of one-off hardware, I've talked already about the fact that hardware costs are sinking, and so therefore I'm of the strong opinion that the future is in fact around not just hardware but services. So how can we help? Well, it depends on which angle you're coming from, if you're a brand, if you're a retailer, if you're a manufacturer. But one of the things that I would definitely encourage, whichever angle you're coming from, is create a decent basis. So you want a very reliable system, you want good quality devices, and at the same time, you need to get the cost to serve down. So there are perhaps some of you thinking about creating a security package together with a smart package, so together with app, etc. If you develop that from scratch, you have to invest so much time in thinking about how the intuitivity of the app, what's the login process, how should the customer scroll through the app, etc. Which cloud provider am I going to use, etc. That takes a lot of time from your own resources. It may well be that you have to get a consultant in because you don't have the expertise in-house. That all, at the end of the day, affects your profit line. So what we would encourage you to do is to work with us where we have all of this stuff out of the box. You can click it together, you can put it in your brand exactly as you want it, so it really fits with your corporate identity. And that just means that you automatically have a lower cost to serve with regards to this solution. At the same time, because we've been doing this for so long, regardless of which manufacturer you choose or which module, if you are a manufacturer, we've been doing this for so long, it just works. So we have a great system that's been proven live in the millions in the market worldwide. And so therefore, you could theoretically select devices from our manufacturers or the modules, the app itself, plus the platform and value-added services, and you would get that all out of the box. It would be launched within a couple of weeks. At the same time, that would normally be maybe an innovation phase within the company internally. So you can be a lot quicker and a lot more cost effective. And at the same time, because we are such a big ecosystem, because we're working with so many manufacturers, you benefit from the innovation. So this market's moving extremely quickly. If you were going to do that all in-house, then there's obviously the challenge of being able to, what's the latest in terms of how an app works, in terms of how what types of buttons are the consumers used to now, etc. What's going on with cameras, what's the latest technology, etc. By working with 2U, you benefit from all of that innovation, which is coming from all these different partners within the ecosystem. So there you've established your basis. It's cost effective, it's innovative, it's constantly keeping up with the pace of the market. You're being able to offer new ideas to consumer all the time. So you've got your basis, you offer it to the customers. Through all of that innovation, of course, you can also return to the customer, because nothing would be worse than making a really great impression, selling some great products to the customer, but they've installed all of the security devices, so they're done. That theoretically could be the end of your relationship with the consumer, until at some point they move or they decide they want a better camera or other device. Because this is part of an ecosystem, you could start to offer other devices. So that might be a smart doorbell function, as an example. So now that we're moving out of lockdown, we're away a little bit more often, then some people might find it useful to, say, be able to let in a neighbor, and let in someone delivering a package, etc. So you have all of these other features that you would be able to then add. That means you can come back 6 months later and upsell them to another service. In terms of the app that we offer, which is completely brandable in your look and feel, it raises the brand awareness. So really, a lot of these security devices, we're not wanting to notice them as consumers. I don't want to see a whacking great movement sensor in the corner of my room. I want them to be subtle. I want them to blend in. Well, the problem is, of course, that then if you are providing those types of devices, then you start to be forgotten. But if you have an app, then the customer is returning to that on a regular basis. They're checking out when they're on holiday, seeing that everything's okay at home, etc. And so therefore they're constantly being reminded about your brand. They're entering into a dialogue with you, and that can be an ongoing relationship. We can even extend that even further to introduce something called the App Mall, where you can then suggest other devices that would be useful to their home within the app, and then link that to your online shop or your online shop provider of choice. And then you can sell them those other devices, say, for example, the smart doorbell sensor. The other thing is that normally you would perhaps calculate your business model around, okay, I'm selling some hardware, I've got this much profit margin within it, and everything has to be built into all of the ongoing costs, and all the rest of it have to be built into this profit margin. But with 2U, through the revenue sharing scheme, you can then continue to earn on a regular basis. So it isn't just this one-off revenue for you with the consumer or the customer, but you can continue to earn with that, and so therefore the business model is far more attractive. And of course, at the other stage, because you're interacting with them with the app, etc., it keeps the customer engaged. They're far more likely, it's not a cold acquisition, as it were, far more likely to purchase. Finally, we also make it possible, obviously within, so if you're watching this from the European Union, then in line with the European Union data protection regulations, All of the data is hosted within the EU, and we adhere very stringently to those requirements around data protection. But within line with that, there is data analysis packages available, so you can start to look about on a generalized level around behavior, etc., and do a sort of almost like a live product management for your products. And that obviously gives you a stronger basis to make decisions around what services, what products you might want to offer in the future. So what's the outlook then? I've taken two very, very old examples here around what I would consider to be security from, or how security has been from a consumer point of view for a long time. So there's very, very old burglar alarm. I remember there's those types of things hanging outside people's homes in the UK, where I'm originally from. The other slightly more unorthodox one, perhaps people who never lived in Britain won't have seen. This was an example of a pub with two dogs, two Alsatians that are just kept on top of the roof to keep an eye out. The point remains, regardless where you're from, security in the olden days, I think, was very much focused around creating an alarm, hoping that somebody might react. So just making a lot of noise, and very much focused on break-ins. So I think we've got that covered. Obviously, we have all sorts of products that would suit that. But we're starting to get more and more intelligent. So it's shown on this sort of circular diagram where things have gradually been moving and what security SaaS from Tuya offers. So we're moving far more into surveillance and response, not just, okay, an alarm is going, but okay, what is happening at the property? I as a consumer can be looking at that, but also that could be linked up to a professional team who are looking and checking that everything's okay. But also, if something happens, what should then occur? So from an insurance point of view, there's no point in, oh, okay, this place is being broken into. They want to also improve their reaction time if something bad happens, so that the customer thinks, oh, that was a really good service. Then, of course, it's not just about break-ins. So we're talking about security, but security also means access control. So if you think about the number of people who maybe come and go from your home, family members, friends, etc., maybe we were talking about things, slightly more advanced cases, so things like packet delivery, etc. Then this could be something around smart locks, which is completely integrated, smart locks with a camera, so you know exactly who is in front of your front door and whether you want to let them in or not. It can go beyond that, so it doesn't just have to be the home and its contents. It could be things like a pet tracker, a car tracker. If we're talking about security, peace of mind within the home, it could be things like reacting to certain weather conditions. So, for example, if you have sunshade on your patio, then if there's going to be bad weather, then it makes sense to roll that thing in, because otherwise it's going to be storm damage, also a big factor for insurance companies. What happens if there's a leak? Very simple device offered through various manufacturers that we have that can be integrated into the system. So you're not just covering things like break-ins, but you're covering other factors around the home. I've called the next one peace of mind corrections. That's a classic example of when you leave on holiday, when you leave for work, did I turn this off? Did I turn that off? The customer can see everything in their app and can react accordingly. And then finally, as I mentioned before, in line with the European data protection rules, we do have certain data that can be made available exclusively to you if you use the security SaaS platform. So that can be used to work with your own customers to create new interesting services that go beyond the traditional hardware markets and make your proposition not just a strong proposition, not just a cost-effective proposition, but also a long-term relationship with your customer. So that's it from my side. Thank you very much for listening. We would welcome questions carrying on from this presentation. We'd also welcome, obviously, further contact. So if you're interested in the products we offer, then by all means get in touch with me. Get in touch via our Expo website. Drop us a mail, give me a ring, ask a question shortly, and we'd be happy to help. Thank you very much for listening. This is Ed Barrett. We're joining the Q&A session now, following on from my presentation. First of all, thank you very much for joining. Thank you very much for listening. We've got, I don't know how much time, but we've got a certain amount of time where you can, by all means, in the chat, just type in a question and I'll do my best to answer it. So I'll just check on the chat whether anything is cropped up. Yeah, there is actually a question already cropped up in terms of camera types, cameras combined with AIs or artificial intelligence. So can we use the camera to identify or to do people counting and to identify other elements, so things like gender, age, etc. This is going to depend quite a lot on the geographical market that you're working in. So I'm not aware of whereabouts which market you're currently serving. In terms of the camera technology, we already offer quite a lot. So we can do things like face recognition. Face recognition you might want to use, say, for access control. That might be in a hotel. It could be that you even use it for your own home, so maybe to let in guests or something like that. So that's definitely possible. I mentioned in the presentation around maybe a pet setting off the burglar alarm. We have cameras with the artificial intelligence involved where they're able to identify that that's just a pet, to avoid that kind of false alarm. But with regards to things like gender and age, we work with all sorts of great manufacturers, and I think particularly at the higher end of the camera price range, then all sorts of technical features. So I wouldn't doubt that things like that are technically possible. But however, I would encourage you to tread extremely carefully. So it depends very much on the regulatory side of the markets you're operating in. That would be things like privacy. So we have within the European market, even things like, say, for example, you aren't able to show with an outdoor camera, say the public street. The public street can't appear on your camera footage. And things, particularly within Europe, things like gender, age, etc. There's a certain, I guess, reticence to around those subjects. So even things like, I don't know, a questionnaire, then it's not actually demanded that someone states their gender or states their age. But maybe that I think that's quite a European thing. It's together with the regulation. We certainly wouldn't do it here in Europe, but I could see there are certain use cases where that would be an advantage. What we can definitely offer is the people counter. So I think that's a really interesting use case, particularly now that Corona is fortunately at the moment dying down a little, that people are returning to work, away from home office, back into the office, returning to public spaces, etc. People counter is extremely useful because at the same time, we have to make sure that there aren't too many people in a confined space. And so therefore, having that kind of technology to make sure whether they're going to the gym or whether they're going to the office and using meeting rooms, etc., and that's without showing anyone's actual, it's not focusing on a particular individual, but just still being able to, it's fairly anonymized, but still being able to count how many people have entered the room, etc., is an extremely useful use case. I think something that we'll see a great deal of growth in the next year, and that's something we definitely can serve. But yeah, with regards to gender, age recognition, etc., focus less on the technology, focus on what, from a regulatory perspective, is allowed within the market that you're working in, and also what your customers want. So with all of this, what we've been talking about in terms of security, etc., it will all have to be I guess, fitted to customer preferences. So some people want a camera in their home for peace of mind. Other people feel very awkward about having a camera in the home. They may just want a movement sensor. So it makes sense to not just do what's technologically possible, not just do what's perhaps regulatory possible, but to also check with your market, check with your customers to see, okay, what are the kind of preferences, because that's obviously going to make your offering that much more successful. Right, Isnur, thank you very much for getting back to me. Indonesia, sorry, I don't know the regulations there. I would encourage you to check that to see, firstly, is that something that is going to be popular with your customers? So from a European perspective, things like gender, etc., very sensitive subjects. People aren't always willing to answer those sort of questions, even in things like questionnaires. As such, it might not be a popular feature. People counter definitely would be. Say, for example, now that we're returning to work, into offices away from home office, then due to corona, then we have to be very careful about the number of people who enter certain so office buildings, public spaces, etc. Gyms is another example. There's usually a maximum, so therefore something like that might be a really handy feature. And obviously it's not related to a personal person, so it's not sort of not related to an individual. It's simply counting the people, so that could be something that could work, I think, work pretty well for worldwide. But yeah, definitely have a chat with us. Consider your customers, consider the regulations around data protection, privacy, etc., in the areas that you're selling in, and then we can definitely help you to find the best AI cameras that we can make possible on our platform. Okay, Sudat, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, Sudat da Silva, he's just signed in. What are the models? Do you mean device types? Can you clarify what you mean by device types? Right, so it's a huge range. If you haven't already, then for starters, I would encourage you to go on the website expo.tuya.com. So that shows a very, very wide range of devices, but that's still only part of what we offer. So we can't update that quick enough in terms of the manufacturers we're working with, in terms of the speed of technology, because obviously the manufacturers are always bringing out new features, etc. But in terms of product types relating to security, indoor and outdoor cameras, those can be Wi-Fi based, they could be using SIM cards. We have a worldwide carrier in several partners in terms of telecommunications. So in terms of SIM cards, eSIMs, etc., that can all be delivered with the product itself and will work in whichever country you're looking to work in. Then doorbell sensors, access control, so smart door locks. They can often be Wi-Fi and Bluetooth related, so that you can either control it from afar, so perhaps you're letting the postie in to deliver a package, or it could be that you completely replace your physical key for your home, and you just turn up with a fob, similar to how you get into the office, or with your mobile phone. So those are some examples. Then you have things, as I mentioned in the presentation, that aren't necessarily only just related to security. So something like a door window sensor can actually be an energy efficiency measure. So you can combine that with radiator thermostat valve, and you could have scenarios like, when I open the window, I want the heating to turn down, because there's no point in your heating carrying on or air conditioning, depending on where you live. At the same time, that could be a useful reminder for people when they leave the home. Hey, you've left the home, so you've gone outside that geofencing area, but you've left a window open. It could even be related to things like, and then we talk about peace of mind. Is it going to rain? You know, I might leave a window open the whole day. How we'd say in German, auf Kipp. So you can tilt the window slightly. Then nobody's going to be able to really break in. But at the same time, if it's going to rain, then that would be a bad idea. So you could link it up with the weather function within the app. And then you can produce a warning. So it says, right, today it's going to rain. So therefore make sure you close your windows. So yeah, all sorts of things around that. It could be stuff like smoke sensors, carbon monoxide sensors, air quality monitors. So it goes, I think the point of the presentation, it's very broad. It can go beyond just, I don't know, someone breaking into your home, and can be focused on things like, are my pets well? Have people, you know, my family members arrived home? Did I turn things off when I'm going on holiday? What's the weather like? How should I set up my home accordingly, etc. But yeah, there are plenty of opportunities. Check out the Expo website, and if you need any more details, my colleague Jane has kindly typed in the email address there in the chat. So if you have any other questions around product types, etc., you want another feature that isn't offered on the Expo, you want a different type of device, if it can be made smart, chances are Tuya and one of our manufacturers will be able to sort it for you. So just get in touch, and yeah, we'll take it from there. So last call for questions. I don't think anything else is cropping up. So yeah, if you missed the deadline, if I've said goodbye, then you can definitely use that email address. At this point, I'd just like to thank everyone for joining this webinar. Thank you very much for listening. Thank you very much for your questions. We're going to be having various other webinars in the coming weeks and months relating to other subjects and products that we're offering. So keep an eye out for that. And I hope to see some of you at one of those webinars in the future. Thank you very much, and have a nice day.